welcome to the Informed Conservative Podcast, where along with the Informed Conservative blog, we bring you the best in conservative news, opinion, and conversation. Visit us online at informedconservative.us, follow us on Twitter at ConserveBlog, and join the conversation on our Facebook page.
Good morning. It's Saturday, March 9th, 2019. Thank you for tuning in to the Informed Conservative. We're broadcasting live from our studio in New Jersey. My first guest today is Second Amendment advocate Mark Cheeseman. If you'd like to speak with Mark, give us a call, 646-564-9883. Later this morning, Mendham Township Deputy Mayor Sara Neibart will be joining us to give us a recap of last weekend's New Jersey GOP Summit. Before we get to Mark, let me share that the March on Trenton will take place on Tuesday, March 26, 2019. The organizers will demonstrate Governor Murphy's ineffective gun control measures, sanctuary status, taxes, and the anti-business climate that is chasing jobs and residents from the state. I also understand that copies of the petition to recall Murphy will be available. More information can be found at www.wethepeopleofnj.com. I also want to share that the New Jersey Constitutional Republicans will be having their March meeting on Thursday, March 28th at 6 p.m. It'll be held at the Grove at Centerton, 1022 Almond Road in Elmer. The topic will be campaigning to win, and featured speakers will include New Jersey GOP Chair Doug Steinhardt, New Jersey GOP State Director Rob Phelan, and New Jersey State Committee Member Bill Vey. This is a unique opportunity to discuss Republican resurgence and what candidates can do throughout the state to ensure Republican victories. More information can be found on the New Jersey Conservative Republicans website, www.njconstitutionalrepublicans.com. So now let's get to our guest, Mark Cheeseman, if I can grab him on the air here. Mark, good morning. Are you with us?
Yeah, Mike, good morning. How are you doing?
Good, Mark. How are you? Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good.
So, Mark, let's jump right into it. It's been in the news recently that Murphy wants to raise permit fees and enact new taxes on guns and ammunition in New Jersey. Why don't you tell us about that?
All right. On February 26th, Governor Murphy had his second anti-gun roundtable meeting, where he discussed a number of different gun control, gun law measures, which included raising fee hikes on firearms ID cards, permits to purchase, and carry permits. And he's lumping all this into a poll tax in the 2019 budget. In addition to that, he also discussed a new smart gun initiative, which is kind of an old thing that's been thrown around in the legislature here for the past, 5-8 years, the smart gun. The ammunition sellers to record every ammunition sale, state-issued credentials to purchase ammunition, the expiration date on firearms ID cards. In other words, your firearms ID card will expire in either 3 or 4 years, and you're going to have to go reapply to get another one. Also,
and of course, there's going to be fees associated with that.
What's that?
I said, and of course, there's going to be fees associated with that renewal that, as I understand it, do not exist today.
Yeah. Right. And there's a couple different numbers floating around about the fees. I mean, you see $300, you see $50. If you in the budget, it's pretty clear that it's looking like $300. That's for the firearms ID card.
My understanding is that fees have not increased since the 1960s. So let's tell people, what is the cost for a firearms ID card today?
It's $2 technically, but the problem is it's not that. That's not what everybody's looking at. It's just the firearms ID card. It's $2. It's what goes along with getting the firearms ID card. You have to have a background check. So when you get done with this background check, which is done by Morpho Trust here, which is based in New Jersey, you really wind up paying a total of about $75 for your firearms ID card here. Okay, because you have to have this electronic background check done before you can get your firearms ID card. So,
Mark, I don't know about
the actual
but,
card itself is $2, but the rest of it, you got to look at the whole big picture here. You got to get the background check, which is I think it's up to $60 now, if I'm not mistaken, maybe $65.
Well, Mark, I don't know about you, but when it comes to background checks, that's really one of my problems with firearms ID cards across the board. And I'll give you an example. I lived in Pennsylvania for a number of years, and I had a concealed carry permit when I lived in Pennsylvania. And that process, because of HIPAA laws, is pretty. Of course they do a background check, but it's all self-disclosure. So in other words, have you been under the care of a psychologist or psychiatrist,
mm-hmm.
et cetera? Have you had those issues? It's all because of HIPAA laws. It's all self-disclosed. So, I knew a kid in Pennsylvania who I knew his dad actually, but he had some severe mental issues. Had been kicked out of every high school that he had ever been to. I understand that he'd also been an inpatient in a psychological hospital. He answered no to all of those questions. So he ended up with a concealed carry permit in the state of Pennsylvania. So, I, for one, am completely for a national concealed carry law. But I do think that we should increase the background checks. We should increase the ability for a mental health background to be included in that background check. So I am a proponent of all of us being able to concealed carry. But I think that we should do more to do a better job in those background checks and particularly psychological evaluations. How do you feel
psychological evaluations, I two ways. I agree and I disagree. Psychological evaluations are a slippery slope. If you're doing a psych evaluation on somebody who is, let's say, recently lost a loved one or had some kind of a tragedy in their life that was caused by them or caused by them, then you're painting with a very, very broad brush. So you can't just say that everybody who's going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or somebody who's received some kind of a minimum dose of anti-anxiety medication is a bad person per se. Passes a law that says that they can red flag you because you're taking maybe 0.5 Xanax one time a day for a mild case of anxiety. Okay, that's a problem. All right, so they're not going to take a look at the individual and the individual's problem. They're just going to look at you and say, you're taking Xanax, or maybe you're taking Wellbutrin, or maybe a very small amount of Prozac, and they're going to red flag you right off the bat. So the only way to combat that is you would have to be denied, and then you would have to go to court, and you'd have to discuss it with a judge. The judge is going to ask you to go get a letter from a psychiatrist or a psychologist stating that you are not a danger, and then ultimately it's going to be in the judge's hands on whether or not you should have a carry permit or a firearms ID card. So you're going to be at the mercy of the state either way.
It seems to me there's got to be some solution there, right? I hear everything that you're saying, and I agree. At the same time, I do want to make sure, again, being a proponent of all of us having our right to carry, I do want to make sure that folks that should not have firearms don't.
I agree with you. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is exactly how I'm saying, which it is basically you're going to have to be red flagged. You're going to have to go to court. The judge is going to have to make the ultimate decision, and you're going to have a psychiatrist or a psychologist who is going to vouch for you and say, look, this individual really isn't a danger. Yeah, he is under my care, but he's not considered to me or the mental health community guidelines to be a danger to own a firearm or carry a firearm.
Absolutely, I agree. I wanted to jump to Murphy's clip capacity ban, down to 10 rounds. I understand the day he signed that, he started talking about reducing it to 5 rounds. How ridiculous is that? When I lived in Pennsylvania, my carry gun was a Smith & Wesson 380. It was a small gun that fit in my pocket, looked like a wallet in my front pocket. Nobody ever really realized I was carrying. It carries 1 in the chamber and 5 in the clip. I carried 2 extra clips with me at all times. So how is a reduced capacity going to make any difference whatsoever? Anybody like you and I who have spent a considerable amount of time at the range, we can change a clip in 2 seconds.
Sure. All right. The 15-round mag ban that Murphy brought up, and that was originally brought in on June 7th, I think, 2017, if I'm not mistaken, along with 7 other bills. But specifically, the reduction in magazine ban bill was nothing more than a campaign promise he made when he was campaign promising. All right, you got to remember, Murphy stated, "I will undo everything that Chris Christie did," and one of them was Christie vetoed the 15-round magazine because Christie knew that it was nothing but an arbitrary number. There was no justification to it. There was no cause for it, and I also believe the other point was Christie was getting ready to run for president. So Murphy stated that I will undo everything Christie did, and that's exactly what he's doing. So the 10-round ban, or the 15-round ban, was nothing more than a campaign stunt that all the other Democrat legislatures in Trenton, 99.9% of them, went along with. And what they did, and I was at the hearing that day, what they did was they spoke about the Parkland, Florida shooting and how we can't have that happen in New Jersey. Well, the Parkland shooter was using a 10-round magazine. Now, when you take a look at New Jersey, the state, and let's focus on New Jersey here, okay? Because Trenton, the legislatures in New Jersey, focused on all these other mass shootings happening around us. The last mass shooting in New Jersey was, I believe, in 1942 by a gentleman in Camden who killed 13 people with a German Luger with 8 rounds in it. That's the last mass shooting we actually had in New Jersey. So the 15-round mag ban, there was absolutely no justification whatsoever, except it was a campaign promise by Murphy. Moms demand action. We're lobbying hard for it, and they got it. It doesn't do a damn thing to stop crime. It doesn't do anything to stop mass shootings. All it does is it restricts the law-abiding citizen from having something that we've always had. There's no reason for it.
And you bring up a great point in that it's the law-abiding citizens that have to abide by these laws. The reality is the state of New Jersey has no idea how many illegal guns are brought into the state, how many criminals are carrying illegal firearms with large capacity magazines. And as I mentioned to RJ last week, when I'm from New Jersey originally. I got married. I lived in Pennsylvania for a number of years. My wife is from Pennsylvania. When I lived in Pennsylvania, where I legally purchased my firearms, I moved back to New Jersey. The first thing I did was go to my local police department and say, I want to register my guns in New Jersey. I know it's not required, but I wanted my local police department to know that I had these firearms that I brought from Pennsylvania. Do you know that my local police department had no idea? So I went to the desk officer, told him what I was trying to accomplish. He didn't know how to do it. He called his sergeant in. His sergeant had no idea how to do it. So ultimately, I've been back in New Jersey for 6 years and have not registered my firearms because my police department could not tell me how to do it. So between the illegal flow of guns that come into New Jersey, the fact that I'll again use my own local police department as an example, they couldn't tell me how to register my guns. It's only law-abiding citizens that have to abide by these rules. And the state of New Jersey really has no idea how many guns are in this state, be them legal, illegal, large capacity, or not large capacity magazines.
No, they don't have enough. I mean, there is a form of registration already when you get your permit to purchase. because your permit to purchase has 3 copies. You get a copy, the dealer gets a copy, and the third copy goes to your local police department. So if they wanted to gather the information together on how many illegal handguns are out there, they could. If they wanted to go to each local firearms dealer and gather that information, they could.
But don't miss my point. I legally purchased my firearms in Pennsylvania, but couldn't register them in New Jersey. So as far as anyone knows, the firearms that I own are registered in Pennsylvania to the address that I lived at in Pennsylvania. I brought them here. I legally purchased them, but nobody knows I have them.
Yeah, that loophole. Yeah, no, I know that one. Yeah, I mean, I know people who live in Florida. They bought handguns in Florida and they bring them to Jersey because there's a loophole. It's which makes the permit to purchase completely ridiculous. It really doesn't do anything, except again, it's one more way to collect more money out of us. It's redundant. It's another redundant background check. I think they hang on to it just to make you feel uncomfortable or to try to sway you from actually buying a handgun, because it is a bit of a complicated process. But no, you're absolutely right. They really don't have a great way of tracking things from out of the state into New Jersey.
Now, I understand there is a case making its way through the Supreme Court regarding concealed carry. Do you have any idea where that is right now?
All right, that's the Rogers versus Grewal case. That right now is awaiting conference in the Supreme Court, which is very good. That means the Supreme Court's willing to actually take a look at it. The problem with that is our Attorney General has not replied. He hasn't made a reply to it yet, and he has until March 21st to make a reply. The United States Supreme Court has reached out to our Attorney General and said, look, you need to reply to this, or what's your stance on this? And he has until March 21st to reply. If he doesn't reply by March 21st, from what I understand, the case will still go up for conference. Now, whether or not the Supreme Court's going to take it, we don't know that yet. They would need to. I'm saying they're going to, because they're reaching out to our Attorney General saying, hey, what's your stance on this? So I think the Supreme Court is going to take a very hard look, and I think they're going to take the Rogers case.
And what would
but
be?
We're going to have. We'll get a little bit more news after the 21st, hopefully, on it. I think it was actually slated to be heard this September or upcoming October, if it's going to be heard at all.
So if that case was successful, what would be the outcome?
Well, the outcome on that case would technically be that we should have our rights restored here in New Jersey. We should get the justifiable need statute would go away. So we would be able to have our ability to carry in New Jersey again. A lot of people don't know that prior 1966, 67, actually prior 1970, really, you could get a carry permit in New Jersey and carry. It wasn't really that much of a big deal. There was a case, and Jay Factor can expand on this a lot more than me. There was a case around 1970 called the Sicardi case, where the state came up with something called the Sicardi Rule. And the Sicardi Rule is really a justifiable need statute, where in that court case, they came up with a ruling that you need to have urgent necessity, specific threats, and all kinds of this other criteria before you get a carry permit. Now, the problem with the justifiable need statute is basically nobody ever meets that standard. You never meet the justifiable need standard. So you can't have one thing. You have to have all three things. You have to have urgent necessity, a special danger, and specific threats, and you also have to have all of this documented on a police report to back it up. And I know gentlemen who have had all three of those, and they have been turned down in court for a carry permit. So really, the justifiable need statute is nothing more than a de facto ban on carry in this state. And the Rogers case spells that out in black and white. There's also a number of amicus briefs that were presented to the Dodgers case. One of them was presented by the Coalition of Firearms Owners in New Jersey, which was actually written and submitted by our attorney for our case, where it really spells out the historical facts, the statistics of how many carry permits have been issued in New Jersey and how we compare to other states. I mean, we're like 0.01% in carry permits issued compared to states like Pennsylvania or Delaware or even New York City for that matter. You can get a carry permit in New York City easier than you can in New Jersey.
I was unaware of that.
I will take a look at everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. New York City, you can get a carry permit easier. Massachusetts, you can get a carry permit easier. Delaware, of course, Pennsylvania. I would say the two worst states in the United States have hands down have to be Hawaii and New Jersey.
I got to tell you, it was so easy in Pennsylvania. I decided I wanted to purchase a firearm. I went to the county office. I filled out the paperwork. In a week, I received a phone call that my permit was ready. I went and picked it up. I went to the gun store, purchased a firearm. I wanted the training, so I took that firearm directly to a training facility and got the training on how to use it. But it was so unbelievably easy, and I often say that I can almost see Pennsylvania from where I'm sitting right now. It's just unbelievable to me how different it is a few miles away.
Yep, 20 miles from me. Yep, one bridge, and I'm in freedom. That's why there's a sign on Pennsylvania. This is where America starts. I believe that. It doesn't start here in New Jersey. It starts in Pennsylvania. But the problem, New Jersey wasn't always this way. Again, I got to go back to the 1960s, and in 66, 67, 68, I was, 4 or 5 years old or something like that. But I do remember my father carried. So did my grandfather. And they didn't talk about it much. It wasn't really a big deal to them. They also went target shooting whenever they wanted to. It did obey the transport laws with the ammunition in the front and the gun in the back. I do remember that. But they did carry.
But those transport laws are so ridiculous in New Jersey. When I lived in Pennsylvania and had a concealed carry permit, if I was out running errands, I was coming home from the office, whatever it was, I'd stop by the range, shoot off a couple of boxes of ammunition, and go home. It was so easy. I got to tell you, in the 6 years since I've been back to New Jersey, my firearms haven't left the safe for a couple of reasons. Number one, I haven't gone to the range in 6 years because it's just so... the ammunition in the back of the car, the gun in the front of the car, both of them in locked boxes. It's just such a pain in the neck, I don't bother. Number two, I've read about so many cases in New Jersey. Pennsylvania has a stand your ground law. And I'll tell you a quick story. I work from a home office, and I was home one day. My car was in the shop, so there was no cars in the driveway. Obviously, it looked like no one was home. Someone tried to break into my house. I heard them trying to get back into my back door. I whipped open my back door with my gun in my hand. The guy ran. I called my local police department, took the clip out of the gun, had it sitting on the kitchen table with my driver's license and concealed carry permit. Cop came to my door. I told him what happened. He shrugged his shoulders and walked away. He didn't even care. And I always think to myself, had that happened in New Jersey, I probably would have ended up in handcuffs for defending my own home. It's just so ridiculous here that, again, my guns haven't left the safe since I moved back to New Jersey, and they probably won't.
No, we don't have a stand your ground law here in Jersey, so you have a duty to retreat into your home if you're attacked outside on your front lawn or wherever. You do have a duty to retreat in your home. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about that. Now, a lot of people think that if you have a duty to retreat in your home, that you got to keep on running right on through the back door. That's not true. You do have a certain amount of latitude in New Jersey to protect your home while you are in your home. Okay? So if somebody does come in your home and they are going to do you bodily harm and they are a clear and present threat, the first thing you want to, if you can, you want to dial 911 first, if you can, or have somebody else do it. All right. Secondly, you take action. It's your home. Defend it. If you may shoot and wound somebody, you may shoot and kill somebody, either in the home now, all right? Now, either way, in New Jersey, you're going to go to court. You're going to be prosecuted, okay? New Jersey operates on something called a case-by-case basis, and this is very important because we don't really have a clear castle law doctrine here. So New Jersey operates on a case-by-case basis. They have to take every case and look at it as an individual case because we don't have just like a good, clear law on any of that. More than likely, you're going to be okay. There is also an obscure law in New Jersey that says if you do shoot and kill or wound somebody in your home, you're responsible for their family can sue you or you're responsible for their medical bills. But you can defend your home in the home. Well, yeah.
Somebody breaks into your home, you defend your family, and you're now liable to a lawsuit.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a number of different companies that out there. You know, I don't want to go on a plug-in routine, but U.S. Law Shield is one of the best. I suggest getting it because if it comes down to it, you do have to carry out your duty in the home. Get on the phone to these guys. You're going to get an attorney. You're going to get help, legal advice. They'll come to court with you, and they know what to do. So, you know, that's something you might want to look into.
Mark, I'm paraphrasing here, but the other night on New Jersey 101.5, Steve Sweeney acknowledged that that the state of New Jersey is really putting a lot of burden on New Jersey gun owners. He opposes the increased fees. Do you believe, Steve Sweeney's a Democrat. We all know where the Democrats stand here. But do you believe that Steve Sweeney's being truthful and that, I don't want to call him an advocate, but he is at least at this stage defending gun owners in New Jersey?
Well, Steve Sweeney, and a lot of people don't know this either. Now, Steve Sweeney at one time had an A+ NRA rating. And a Democrat, and he's actually from my district. At this point, what Steve Sweeney said was very significant, and he said we've picked on the gun owners long enough. He just admitted that they've been picking on the gun owners. That's one thing he did with that statement. I'm 50-50 on it. Sweeney could go either way. What I will say is that now is not the time to start going after Steve Sweeney. I wouldn't do that right now. I wouldn't advocate that at this point because he's given every indication that he is going to not allow this to happen. So until there's a good, clear reason to start calling Sweeney or Sweeney's office and asking him to vote no on it or stay off our backs, I would let things lie right now with that because he is on record saying that he is not going to do this. We've picked on gun owners enough, were his exact words. So he's already admitted that this administration, not necessarily him, but this administration has done enough damage to the law-abiding citizens, and I believe he knows that. What exactly he's going to do, again, I'm on the fence with it. I really can't say, except that all indications point to the fact that he's not going to allow this to happen. I think he may possibly allow portions of it to happen. What portions of it, I don't know.
Do you think that's a product of Steve Sweeney being from South Jersey? And I would assume there are more gun owners in South Jersey than anywhere else in the state.
Well, what you have in South Jersey is hunters. You have more hunters in South Jersey. You have more hunters
and more rural areas and probably more people that shoot. Yeah, sure.
You got Gloucester County, Cumberland County, Salem County, all the way down the line until you get all the way down to the Pine Barrens and the Shore down here. So he's got an awful lot of hunters in his district, and Sweeney and the hunters have always gotten along. They still do, and they do dialogue with each other. So the hunters are not happy about this. I know that for a fact. And I would be willing to bet that the hunters are talking to him about it, and he's talking to them about it, which is why he probably made the statement he made. So, I mean, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But I'm 50-50, but he has given every indication that he's not going to allow this to happen. Also, you got to remember, too, he did block this once. So,
and let's hope
another indication.
And let's hope he continues to. Yep. Let's hope he continues to.
Yeah, I hope he does continue to. Yeah.
Mark, I really appreciate you joining us this morning. Will you come back again?
Sure, Mike, anytime. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Mark, thanks very much. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of the Informed Conservative podcast, along with our next guest, Sara Neibart, and your calls at 646-564-9883.
Human Capital Consultants is the premier talent acquisition and human resources consulting partner to startup and mid-market organizations across the United States. Our mission is to provide strategies to attract, grow, and retain top talent and build high-performing teams. Regardless if your need is for development of a total corporate talent acquisition or HR strategy and function, in evaluation and re-engineering of your current talent acquisition or HR strategy and processes, a total or partial outsourced solution, talent acquisition, or HR consulting services, an interim talent acquisition, or HR resource, or candidate sourcing to supplement your internal team, let us show you how we've helped our clients achieve top human capital effectiveness. Visit Human Capital Consultants on the web, www.humancapitalconsultants.com, or call 856-254-3290.
Mama's Balls makes meatballs like Mama used to make. Balls, sandwiches, salads, flatbreads, pasta, and more. You can't beat Mama's meat. Visit them on the web at mamasmeatballs.com or at 2673 Haddonfield Road in Pennsauken, and tell Mikey Balls you heard about Mama's Balls on the Informed Conservative.
What happens when a former GOP chairman and a political operative co-host the radio show?
You get a lot of BS.
If you had a lot of BS, so have we. Bob and Steve in the morning, Saturday, 8 a.m.
Tune in Saturday mornings, where you'll hear our voice.
And we want to hear yours on the Bob and Steve Show.
Tune in to the Bob and Steve Show every Saturday from 8 to 10 a.m. on Cruisin' 92.1 WVLT in South Jersey. We're online at WVLT.com.
It might be cold outside, but it's hot in here with the Informed Conservative.
Our next guest is Mendham Township Deputy Mayor Sara Neibart to give us a recap of last weekend's New Jersey GOP Summit. Give us a call to ask the Deputy Mayor your questions about the summit at 646-564-9883. Deputy Mayor, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm actually on my way to the Morristown St. Patrick's Day Parade right now. But yeah, last weekend was great at the summit. It was great to see so many Republicans and conservatives from all across the state of New Jersey come together in Atlantic City. And, we had some great panels. Chairman Steinhardt did a great job, as well as the rest of the NJ GOP. And I really hope that event is something that they keep replicating year after year, because I know we have some really great excitement going and strategy going into the 2019 election.
That's great to hear. One of the things that I've always said about Republicans in New Jersey is that we need to come together. Do you think an event like this is really beginning to bring Republicans in New Jersey together?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I think, as Republicans in New Jersey and conservatives, we, that we have a really big tent, and we need to make sure that everyone feels included, and that, we are making sure that we're getting all ideas from all spectrums of political affiliations in the Republican Party and conservatives, as well as, just like different parts of the state together to really craft our messaging and make sure that, we're one cohesive unit going into elections. Because, it's unfortunate. We've suffered some pretty bad losses in the last couple of years. And, I think it's just really time to turn it around and make sure we're energized for 2019.
How did that energy feel down there? Are people really feeling positive about 2019 and beyond?
Yeah, I think, people are really excited for 2019. I know that there was a bunch of people circulating petitions. Every panel I went to, I was actually only there on Friday, but, I moderated a panel on young elected officials, and I also sat in on two of the panels. So two of the panels I just sat in on was the 2018 Lessons Learned panel, which was very informative, as well as the Women in Politics panel. And every panel that I was at, people were viciously taking notes, and there were some really great questions asked. And I think it's just really important to, have those spaces that, people feel like they can ask questions, and they can talk about how to start a campaign or how to start an organization, because, just getting started is probably one of the hardest things. But, once you get going and once you get people involved, that, momentum, is something that, is much easier when you have an infrastructure, behind you. So it was really great to see people engaged. I've been in, Republican politics in New Jersey for the last several years, but there was a lot of people I met that I've never met before. So it's awesome to see that, we're bringing more people in, because, that's how we're going to grow, and that's how we're going to be successful in every election going forward.
Not to put you on the spot, but what are some of the lessons that we can learn from 2018?
Yeah, I think, it's, very interesting. So I was actually the deputy campaign manager for Bob Huggins to a Senate race. And, when it comes down to it, voter registration in New Jersey is something that we need to really be taking very seriously as Republicans, because, we're at the point that there's 900,000 more Democrats in New Jersey than Republicans. Of course, there's more unaffiliated voters than both Democrats and Republicans, but, the Democrats are outpacing us, every day, every time there's a new report on voter registration. And that's something that we have to take very seriously. But, it's not just about registering, random people. It's also about changing a culture of voting, changing a culture of party affiliation, and really, bringing our message to the people and saying, we're Republicans. These are the things that we stand for. We're here for you. Let's have, an actual conversation about it. I'd love to get you involved. And so, for my conversations last week and in the last couple of weeks about people, with people about, where the Republican Party in New Jersey needs to go, it's definitely about, really bringing our message to people who've never been involved in politics before, focusing on voter registration. And then also, the new vote by mail law, I'm sure you know about it. That was something that was definitely, a challenge, this year. And, right now we have the final results and all the data from last election, but, people are still going through it. And I think in the next couple months, we'll be able to craft a more cohesive strategy on dealing with vote by mail going forward.
I think that Bob Huggins gave Menendez more of a challenge than anyone expected, particularly Menendez. Yeah. I'm hoping that we're going to use that momentum in 2019 to really bring the whole party and every candidate that runs to the next level.
It's actually really interesting that you said that, because I actually had a conversation a couple of days ago saying the exact same thing. We need to continuing the energy and excitement that Bob Hugin gave the Republican Party in New Jersey. And I don't know, what the future plans of Bob Hugin are, but regardless if he stays involved or he doesn't, we need to make sure that his message as well as the excitement behind him is somewhat replicated on kind of a broader party level. And I'm totally open to any ideas of how to do that. I have some thoughts about that, but if anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear them. I know the state party would love to hear them as well, because not one of us has the answer. It's going to take a lot of people through the next couple of years really focusing on this to really make really have a Republican Party in New Jersey that's strong and that can continually win elections from year to year going forward.
There are people out there that believe that national politics may have been the undoing of Bob Hugin at the end of the day. When I look at the National Democratic Party, I am seeing nothing but chaos right now. So I really hope that that's going to help us in New Jersey this year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, watching, the Democratic primary field for the presidential election, unfolding and seeing, everything from, AOC and the far left Democrats. It's just disgusting to where the Democratic Party nationally is going. I'm an American Jew, and just to see the anti-Semitic tropes that have been, tossed around and just, it's just, it's really upsetting to me. It'll be very interesting in the next couple of months to see how the Democratic primary field continues to unfold. I know I'm excited to watch those presidential debates because they're going to be very entertaining.
And speaking of the presidential race, as we all know, Democrats in New Jersey are trying to give Cory Booker a clear path to the White House, allowing him to run for his current Senate seat and president at the same time, trying to keep Donald Trump off the ballot by saying that he needs to show his tax returns. I'm not hearing a lot of talk about this at that point. Do the Republicans in New Jersey have a plan if Murphy signs a bill saying that basically Donald Trump can't run for president if he doesn't show his tax returns?
I haven't. I know I've seen the bill, go through the legislature, and a lot of the Democrats are talking about it. I know the NJ GOP has, very much been focusing on, rallying against this. I'm not in all those discussions, but, knowing that a solidified plan, for me, I think, not allowing someone on the ballot, but someone who, has met all the requirements on ballot access in New Jersey and not allowing them on the ballot, I believe is not right. So, I'm sure the Republican Party will fight that tooth and nail, and I'm sure I will be fighting that tooth and nail because it's really important. I was the ballot access director for Governor Christie for his presidential election, and, I believe that if you meet the requirements on getting on the ballot, everyone should have that, opportunity to get on the ballot. So to say that somebody can't be on the ballot for things that are not an actual requirement, I think is not right. So I'm sure the Republican Party is going to fight it, but it just seems that, the conversations in Trenton have gotten so petty and so political. And I just, there's so many other things that these legislators should be focusing on, like lowering our property taxes, and they're not. And, that's where they really should be focusing their energy.
They're focusing their energy on illegal immigrants and continuing to raise taxes and everything that's on Murphy's agenda while pushing Cory Booker. I mean, Cory Booker was a failure as the mayor of Newark. He appears to be a failure as a senator. Now they want to push him as president. I mean, it's just unbelievable how hard they're working to make sure he gets a path to the White House.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Just looking at the Democratic primary field, it seems that Cory Booker is going to have a true challenge getting to the White House. So, from folks I've spoken to, in D.C., they are not convinced that Cory Booker will be the Democratic Party nominee. So, it'll be very interesting in the next couple of months to see what unfolds.
The unfortunate thing for me is that there's no one in that field right now that I can say, okay, I want to see Donald Trump get reelected. I want to see a Republican in the White House. But if he doesn't, at least we could be okay with this person. I mean, I am truly scared by what I see in the Democratic field right now.
Yeah. No, me too. It's, we'll see what happens. I continue to be, baffled of what I see in the media every day. But, my number one priority right now is, helping the Republicans in the 2019 elections up and down the ballots, because we have some great candidates running. And there's some seats that we need to defend, and there's some seats that we definitely have an awesome opportunity to gain. And we have some great candidates. We have, some young elected officials running for office. And so I'm really excited to see what happens.
That's great to hear. I live in Camden County, which, as I'm sure you know, is a Democratic block here, right? So, it would be great to see us start picking up some seats across the state. And how great would it be if we could pick up something eventually here in Camden County?
Yeah. No, I've spoken to Chairman Ambrosino at length about, Camden County elections. And it's just very interesting to me, like, what has happened to Camden County over the last 20 to 30 years. So, yeah, hopefully, that's the dream. I would love to see us pick up seats there.
In your opinion, what can the average person in New Jersey, the average Republican in New Jersey, do to help the cause?
What was that? I'm sorry. You went in and out. I couldn't hear that.
No, I was asking, so in your opinion, what would you encourage the average Republican voter in New Jersey to do, to volunteer, to get involved, to help the cause here in the state?
Yeah, I would say social media, and this is, a very powerful thing. So social media is very important. Get on social media. There are some great grassroots social media organizations that, really, share messages, share information, but also join your local Republican club, contact your municipal chair, get in touch with the state party, because there's something that we all can be doing. Right now, there are candidates, trying to get petition signatures to get on the ballot for the June primary. And, that deadline is the first week of April. So, if you have time, it'd be great to, collect signatures, knock on doors, and just, support the party as well as, start registering voters. So it's really, there's a place for everyone in this party, and it just, get in contact with your, local Republican club or municipal chair, and I'm sure they'll find a place for you.
Back to Atlantic City for a moment. Were there any other panels that you sat in that you'd like to tell us about that really you felt were impactful? There were 3 panels on Friday. One was 2018 lessons learned, and that was very informative. We had people that ran all different type of races that were kind of giving their experiences. And it's going to be very interesting going into the next couple elections, because digital has very much changed how media buys work in New Jersey. And so it used to be that, if you, spent, X on, TV, broadcast, cable, you would spend, 10 or 15% of that on digital. But now, just because of the nature of people, cutting the cord and being on, their phones all the time, and they're watching TV from their computers, people are, utilizing digital so much more. So, in the next couple of elections, we'll be using probably, 40% of our budget going to digital. So that's very interesting, and I thought that was very informative. Do you think that's something that Republicans are a little bit behind on? I feel like Democrats have done a much better job, both digital, social media, etc., than Republicans have done over the past several years.
So I think it's interesting because I've seen some very successful social media and digital campaigns from Republicans. However, a lot of the work that I see mostly on digital is a lot of the IE groups. And so, I think candidates in general have to start looking at some, what are these groups doing on digital, and try to match on that front, because I don't think the Democratic candidates are outpacing Republicans on digital, but a lot of the kind of special interest groups or IE groups are the ones that are really utilizing digital, and we saw that in the last election and the election in 2017. But yeah, no, digital is something that it takes a lot of time. You need a lot of content. You need a good mix of video as well as creative that has just a certain amount of text. There's a lot of rules about it, but there's a huge market for it right now, and I know a lot of people that are getting into that field, because that's really where politics are going. I think it's interesting. Donald Trump's campaign manager for the 2020 election is Brad Parscale, and he was his digital data guy, and so it's very interesting to see how that'll make a mark in the 2020 election.
And then you mentioned women in politics was one of the panels that you sat on.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't sit on it. I actually just sat in on the room, and I listened in, because a lot of my colleagues and the former Lieutenant Governor King Guadagno actually moderated that panel, and it was very interesting. We need more women in politics, women in the Republican Party who are elected officials, who are political operatives, and they're trailblazers, and it's just interesting to see their stories and kind of where they see themselves right now as well as in the future. And I've always, last year I actually sat in the Women's in Politics panel, and when it comes down to it, it's just very important to create spaces and situations that so everyone feels included, and that we can really be as we rise, we bring other people with us, and that's something that I take very seriously, and I hope that others do as well.
I saw on social media that there was an African American group in Atlantic City last weekend as well. I found that very encouraging, since I don't have any statistics in front of me to go by, but just based on life experience and talking to people, it seems to me that most African Americans that I've encountered have been Democratic voters. So I was very encouraged to see that there was an African American Republican group in Atlantic City last weekend as well.
Yeah, there was an African American coalition breakfast, and so I unfortunately wasn't able to make that breakfast, but I heard, it went very well. And that's something that, Doug Steinhardt has been doing very well, is that he's been trying to bring, people of all, areas of life to, into the Republican Party, because we need to be, a more inclusive party. And, we need to be also making sure that we're, building bridges to groups that might not be traditional Republican voters. And, I just think that, it's something I want to see more of. But, no, I agree. It's very encouraging to see it, but we definitely need to work harder and do more.
That's great. And I believe that you mentioned that you're a Jewish American. Jews tend to be Democratic voters, I believe, as well. So I'm assuming that's a group that you're focused on as well.
Yes, definitely. I'm very pro-Israel. I truly believe that the relationship that the United States and Israel has is a very important one. And, it's very interesting to see where the, Democratic Party is going right now. The Democratic Party is, with the rhetoric that's going on, and even, the resolution that was brought in the, House of Representatives on the floor the other day, it was kind of a watered down bill from the Senate. And it's just, upsetting that, the Democrats aren't taking anti-Semitism seriously within their own party, as well as, not taking the relationship between the United States and Israel as seriously as they should. And do you know what? I truly believe that, the Republican Party is the pro-Israel party, and I really encourage that other American Jews should switch their registration and become Republicans.
And historically, I don't think they do. I mean, my grandparents, the Levines, would be rolling over in their graves today if they knew I was so active as a Republican.
Yeah, I know I've heard that from a lot of people. My family has always been a Republicans. You know, my dad, my grandpa, my uncle, my whole family. So I think that's just very interesting, like the different communities that, you know, people grow up in, their different identities, and it makes them who they are. You know, I grew up in Morris County. I went to the Hebrew Academy in Morris County for, you know, kindergarten through 8th grade, and that's in Randolph. And a lot of my friends that I grew up with, you know, all their families are Democrats. And we grew up very similarly, but it's just kind of like the background of where our families came from. And so it's just interesting. I think in the next couple of years, we'll definitely see a shift of, you know, Jewish Americans voting more Republican, just seeing what's, you know, everything that's going on. I actually had the chance of being in Israel last May with Bob Hugan, and we actually visited the embassy in Jerusalem. And, you know, that has always been, you know, a dream of mine to, you know, the American embassy being moved to Jerusalem, because that's its right to do that, to me, was, you know, very important and very impactful for the Jewish community, I think.
I actually had a cousin who was a captain in the United States Air Force who was stationed in Jerusalem. He was part of a group that was, you know, working with Israel in Jerusalem, and he got to live there for 3 or 4 years. It was amazing.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Yeah. You know, it's a beautiful place. I'm actually going back in a couple of weeks. My niece is being bat mitzvahed at the Western Wall. So, you know, Israel is a great place. I encourage everyone who has the opportunity to go. It's very incredible to see everything that's going on there. You know, you have coexistence of all the major religions, you know, in Israel, but, you know, Jerusalem is a very you know, beautiful and interesting city that highlights that. And so, yeah, it's a great place.
I'll tell you something, Sarah. If anyone ever needed a reason to really stand behind Israel, about 15 years ago, I was dating a woman who was from Israel, and her family was there, and her 2 cousins came over. They were both teenagers, and you know, they started talking about what it was like to you know, have bombs go off in their backyard, and you know, their brother was in the military, and I remember you know, her male nephew looking at me, who was about 14 years old, saying, you know, my brother could die. I have to go into the military when I turn 18. I could die. I mean, it's chilling to really listen to these kids and the way that they live and the way that they have to grow up.
Yeah, no, my nephew is actually a soldier in the IDF. He became a soldier last year, and you know, it is incredible what he is doing to safeguard, you know, Israel, as well as, you know, democracy in the Middle East. I actually lived in Israel for about 9 months while I was in high school, and I lived in a kibbutz right outside Jerusalem. And I remember when I was there was a terrorist attack at a yeshiva in Jerusalem. And I remember, you know, being, you know, so confused and so scared. And I remember at that moment, I lived on a kibbutz. There were, you know, Arabs and Israelis, you know, working together at the kibbutz. And I said, you know, why can't, you know, we have peace? Why can't we have coexistence? And that really was the moment that I decided that I wanted to get into public service and really, you know, learn more about politics and how the political process works, because, you know, I wanted to make sure that we do, and, you know, at that point, you know, hope for peace in the Middle East, and I still do, and it's just upsetting to see, you know, the constant, you know, terrorism at parts, of course, in Israel, but, you know, of course, with
Sarah, I hate to cut you off because the platform's about to cut us off, but thank you very much for coming on. Will you come on again?
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to the Informed Conservative Podcast. Visit us online at informedconservative.us. Follow us on Twitter at ConserveBlog, and join the conversation at our Informed Conservative Facebook page.